Hello, my name is Marvin Belicker. Today is April 30th, 2018, and this is programming in Logic Lab3, functions and arrays. You can see I have a motor set up on this side and 4 LEDs next to the Arduino. Already loaded up a program that dependent on the button press. So I'll push the button. Let me reset that. Alright, Arduino's ready. First button press turns the motor on, and the red LED comes on, as you can see. And then another button push to turn on the red LED and the yellow LED, and then the motor goes off, as you can see. Alright. Another button press should turn the motor to pulse, and the 3 lights come on. And then another button push should turn on the last one, and then the motor comes back fully on. And then the last button push will turn the whole system off.
Not hindering, at all. Beneficial.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think there's like.
There we go. And then that will reset
Carl brought up some aspects.
the loop. So let me show you what's going on behind the scenes.
It was off the information we were pulling. Not anything we're doing, but what they're looking at.
Okay.
Like I said, that's right. Yeah.
So
I'm not the expert.
starts by declaring the variables that I'm going to use. I'm going to use a state, a button, the 3 LEDs in red, yellow, blue, green. I set up an array called lights for the red, yellow, blue, and green. And then I also have another array for the motor drive that runs the motor, called on1, off1, pulse 1, and on 2. I have a counter that counts the button push, and then I have input for the motor. And then I also have a long previous time to take the time, and an interval to set the interval for the pulse. And I have a motor state which shows what state the motor is in, if it's on or off. And then I have a last push long. It's unsigned because it keeps the time, the moments inside the Arduino. So for the pin modes, I have red, yellow, blue, green, and motor set up outputs, and then the BT as an input. That's pin 2 for the inputs of the Arduino. So in the main loop, I have an if statement that says if the state is high and the counter is equal to or under 3, then these 3 functions will be done. The first one is a count with no delay. The next one is an LED, and the LED on function is dependent on the value it gets from the lights counter array, which we set up above. And then we have the motor run, which is the motor drive counter, which takes the array that we had above to determine what the motor should be doing at that time. So those 3 functions control the first 4 button presses. And the 5th button press, you will read the button state first. Then after that, if the button was pushed, the motor will come off with the motor off function, which turns the motor off, and the LEDs will come off. All 4 of them, the red, yellow, blue, and green, just to that function. And I have a restart counter, which will set the counter back to 0. And then this is the main do while. If no button is pressed at the very beginning, it will get in this loop and stay there until the button is pressed. So that's for the main loop, and that's what carries on the Arduino going back and forth. So here we have the functions that were written down. So we have the void LED on, which mainly turns on the LED, and it's dependent on the number that the array sends down to this value. And then the LED off, that's the one that sets all the LED is off, and as you can see, I have the arguments coming in, which will be the A, B, C, and D. In this case, red, yellow, blue, and green. And then after that, we have the function that runs the motor. It's function motor run. And the first one, if the value sent from the array, the motor drive array, is 20, then we get the motor comes on because the pin is set too high. If the value is 21, the motor goes off because the pin is set too low. And if the value is 22, it calls for the function pulse motor, which is, you'll see shortly, it's right below. And then we have the if the value is 23, the motor will come on again. So this is a function for motor off, which turns off the motor if the counter gets to 4 and the button is pushed. And then we have the restart here, like I said before. It's the one that resets the counter to 0. And then we have the count with no delay. This is the most vital part of the whole thing, to allow the motor to pulse. Without this, you will not be able to pulse the motor. So we have the onside long, which takes the time, the current time the button was pushed. Then after that, you see if it'll save the time that the number was pushed.
Exactly. All right, that's what they all say, buddy.
And then we have a counter to add the value.
Always when drawing straws and other things.
And then after that, we have the pulse, which is the very final one. We have
I forgot. Yeah, we gotta finish that line.
it's this here. We save the current time and compare it to the last the next time, and this will not function until the interval, which is set above to be 1,000 milliseconds to execute. So it'll check if the last state was on or off, and if it was on, switch it back to being low. And that way it'll go back and forth, changing the motor state and pulsing the motor. Alright, thank you. More information will be in the write-up. Alright.